Yes, Your Worship. I have a pecuniary interest for item 10.3, the Thorndale Industrial Drain, due to my employment. I should turn my mic on, eh? All right. So the first item on the agenda is the public meeting regarding the O'Reilly drain. So, Mr. DeVos, would you like to present to council?
Good evening. Yes, the O'Reilly drain report is for repair and improvement to the existing O'Reilly drain, as well as the extension of the drain upstream. So it would be under section 4 of the Drainage Act for a part of a new municipal drain, and section 78 for repair and improvement to the existing drain. The existing drain is in lots 1 on the other side of Prospect Hill Road as an open channel. And then the drain starts and comes across the road as a closed drain, and then splits off into 2 different drains going northeast and east. The southerly drain, which is referred to as Drain B, initially, the watershed area was first constructed in 1959 through a report, and then improved in 1967 through a supplementary drain and a couple other branches. But the requests here were to improve the northeasterly route, which goes upstream across Plover Mills Road, and then has watershed up as far as Valley View. And so the extension would take it across the Foster property up to Valley View, and then across Valley View to serve as the property on the east side of Valley View. We did investigate the existing drain and found that both road crossings at Van Eck, in terms of both drains, were in poor shape, and therefore we needed to replace the original drain and provide enough capacity with a new drain. So 2 new pipes were installed. It was done ahead of the report by the road departments. They were working on that road this past year, so they decided to do the work themselves and put it in the ground ahead of time. So that work is complete. And then we are looking and recommending to replace the older 1959 drain and leave the 1967 drain in place as we go through from Prospect Hill up to Plover Mills Road, and then take a new drain along Plover Mills, across Plover Mills, and then upstream through the Foster property up to Valley View and across the road. The existing drain that's left in place would be abandoned from municipal drain status. The landowner on the north side requested that we go around the bush area on their property if possible, and we looked into the costs and the difference in doing that, and it made sense to try and do that for that property. We'd be boring the road in a different location, but it is feasible. The county will have to ensure that the water's getting across the road sufficiently in the future. That's written in the report, because we will no longer have a drain crossing in that spot, but we will be crossing in a different spot. There's also transmission lines from Enbridge, and they are fairly shallow, and the old drains were having to go right on top of them. So they went up over and above them, very close to them, and Enbridge doesn't always like that. We investigated the alternatives of trying to go underneath. It is feasible, but it's quite expensive and quite a disturbance. We reviewed that with the landowners, and the landowners decided not to request that much disturbance to their land. So we are going fairly shallow when we get over the pipelines. But that was what the landowners wanted. In order to provide the capacity in that particular area, we are using 3 pipes instead of 2 that are there. There are 2 pipes there. There's the 1959 and the 1967. Both pipes will be replaced as new pipes. So we will have 2 new pipes across the pipeline for future considerations with the pipeline itself. We'll be putting in catch basins along the route of the drain at property lines and at road crossings to try and help surface water get into the drain. The newer drains are larger. They provide more capacity, and some of that capacity is for surface water. We do caution landowners that these systems are still low flow systems, and that in a big rain event, the majority of the water will still be over top of the ground. You don't always have those rain events, and landowners still want these types of improvement. But this past year, and the year before, we've had some fairly large rain events. So we tend to just caution the landowners that they still expect to see surface water at times. And I think I'll stop and open up to questions.
Thanks, Mike. Are the any affected landowners in the room who wish to speak to? No questions or comments? Okay. So anyone wanting to add and remove names to the petition? No? That we're not aware of? Okay. All right. So any questions from the members of council? No? Okay. All right. So at this point then, I would be looking for a mover and a seconder for the recommendation as it appears on the agenda. Councillor Heeman and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
And have a Merry Christmas, Mike. The next item is number 7, corporate benchmarking report, 2023 energy and greenhouse gas emissions summary. Who is present? Oh, there they are. Okay. All right. Pardon? Oh, Richard. Okay. Whenever, sorry.
No problem.
If you'd like to start your presentation, go right ahead.
Sure, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Hello, council and constituents who may be listening. I'll do a brief introduction really quickly, and my colleague Elisa will briefly do an introduction, and then we can kind of summarize the main points of our report. It was lengthy, so we thought it might just be better to hit the high points and then answer any questions that might arise from our quick summary. Does that sound okay?
Yes, that's fine. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, so I personally was in oil and gas servicing for over 15 years. We decided to make a software that would essentially help municipalities determine their energy efficiency as well as start planning their emission reduction strategies. And that is how Emission was born. We built a proprietary software, and our main product is the corporate benchmarking report, which is what we have created for Thames Centre. And I am the CEO, Richard Happ.
And hi, I'm Elisa. I work with Richard on the corporate benchmarking report. Richard will be doing most of the presentation. I'm here to answer any specific questions about the report content. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll get started. Thanks, Elisa. In the Thames Centre corporate benchmarking report, the main points that we'll be speaking to are listed from pages 5 to 7. I don't think we're going to, are you able to screen share, Lisa?
Yeah, I can share the report.
Okay. And we'll just kind of highlight the sections as we're talking through. Make sure it comes up first.
Yeah, can you guys see?
It's showing up on my end. I think we're okay.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So the corporate benchmarking report itself as a product was born from an international protocol, essentially the Partner for Climate Protection. We use the Canadian supplement to do all of our calculations and efficiency aggregations. The report that we completed for Thames Centre was an inventory on all corporate energy usage, the greenhouse gas emissions, and energy costs for the calendar year 2023. The building sector specifically were very good. The majority of buildings were much lower than the Canadian average for energy intensity. But the sector overall used the most energy and had the highest energy costs. The Flight Exec Center was the largest contributor. Solar panels on your buildings are kind of our biggest recommendation for the easiest way to bring down the cost as well as begin decarbonizing. The Flight Exec Center is the largest electricity consumer. They used over 1.5 million kilowatt hours in the calendar year. And then the Thorndale Lions Community Center pays the highest electricity rate at $109 per gigajoule. Your landfill, so your waste sector, was the most greenhouse gas emission intensive. So that includes all solid waste from the community, not just your corporate operations. And it includes the entire waste decomposition lifetime. So there's two different ways you can calculate it, and we chose the one that incorporates the greenhouse gas emissions over its entire lifespan for decomposition. Implementing a composting program or a landfill gas collection system would significantly reduce those emissions as well. Your fleet vehicles were the most greenhouse gas emission intensive by energy use, particularly diesel vehicles. They did 70 tons per terajoule of energy used. Street lights and outdoor lighting sector was the most cost intensive overall at $60 per gigajoule for energy used. Harrietsville Ball Diamond in particular was very cost intensive at $213 a gigajoule. And renewable energy would be a great solution at that location. We pulled it up with the environmental committee, and it's pretty remote. So it did appear that there was a couple rooftops that solar would be able to offset that cost, though. Yeah, and we anticipate that the emissions will continue to increase over the next 10 years if no changes are made to your corporate operations. So that's kind of a high-level summary. Are there any questions from council?
I'll turn it over to council. Thanks very much. Any questions from any of the members of council on the report? Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to give a generalized thank you for putting this together. I know that you had previously shared it with the committee. I just wanted to note more so than a question. I guess I have a question and a comment, sorry. Today we actually went through our budget and we did the consideration for future fleet vehicles using your report. So appreciate the timing on that. And I'm sure it's going to be referenced moving forward. Regarding street lights and traffic lights, would your recommendation to be moving towards like LED lights or a different type of bulb in that sense? Because I believe we've slowly started to transition street lights around here.
Yes. Oh, sorry, Elisa, do you want to take it?
Well, I was just gonna say, yeah, your street lights, according to the information we were given, they are LEDs, but some of your sports fields aren't. So definitely, yeah, here, transition to LEDs. That's a big, relatively easy way to reduce your consumption.
And speaking to the fleet vehicles as well, there is additional funding sources coming out to help municipalities of all sizes begin electrifying their fleet where it makes sense. That was a question that came up in the committee meeting. I'm sure you recall. After digging into the Green Municipal Funds study, I do believe that we could kind of piggyback that and do a more granular study on exactly what it might take to electrify the fleet vehicles that Thames Centre has that would make sense. So think more urban vehicles. It was mentioned in the call before that like trucks that are driving within urban centers from location to location, stopping frequently. That's really your best candidate for electrification. The electrification on major long highways and stuff doesn't really work very well.
Perfect. And if I can just conclude with saying that I'm not sure we want to put too much focus on the Harrietsville Ball Diamond. It doesn't get used too much at night. So I'm not sure if the expense of that would be worthwhile.
Yeah, so we're, I mean, each province is different. In Alberta right now, which is where we're based in Calgary, we were actually just given approval on Friday from one of the major utility providers for solar installation for one of our clients that would offset their entire corporate building's consumption, even though they aren't kind of linked. So it might be a situation where you could get explicit approval for solar installation, and although you're not using it at that location, it might be able to come off kind of throughout the billing process. Just an idea for a solution that might work.
Deputy Mayor Smybert has a question.
Great, thank you. I think the corporate benchmarking report will be useful on a go-forward basis. My question is more for staff, though. Excuse me, in terms of where we go from here after we adopt the report.
Thank you, Mayor. Through to the Deputy Mayor. As noted, this information is very valuable from a staff perspective as well for energy usage and as well as potential grant applications as it relates to the recommendation by the consultant on potential solar installations, in particular on Flight Exec Center. I would note this report is based on 2023 data. It does not include the renovation expansion project, which will we can start updating from there as well. But allows us to monitor these things, apply for grants, and even if it's things as seemingly simple as changing lights to LED, there's grants available for those things also. This remains available for us and for council during those budget guidance processes, which occurred earlier today, as an example.
Thanks, Mr. Barrick. Councillor Lockie?
Yeah, through your worship. So I just wanted to comment as chair for the Environmental Advisory Committee. So this report was presented to us on December 2nd. And so we had a lot more questions. We reviewed in a lot more detail. And just wanted to call it, the committee is really pleased to know that, we actually have a really, it's a decent starting point. Like there's really not that much for us to improve without spending a lot of money. We did ask the question about the solar panels because that was one of the main recommendations. So correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that it was a 5 to 9 year payback for this sort of project. So, we don't want to, spend money without having some good returns. So just kind of want to keep that in mind when we, look at this report further and, figure out where to take it from here.
Yeah, that's all absolutely accurate. I did want to briefly mention, as I mentioned to the committee, we at Emission have a product that we're putting together for the municipalities, and the one I was mentioning that we got approval for on Friday is kind of going to be the initial pilot project of it. But essentially, we want to make it so that municipalities are able to access a discounted financial pool for essentially solar installations where they make sense. And the 10 Center Flight Exec Center would be fantastic candidate for this. And luckily, because you guys did the CBR already, that gets you access to the funding if that is something you wanted to pursue with us. We're able to provide kind of a loose proposal based off of expected energy consumption offset as well as any kind of emission reduction. And then we can discuss that further if there is some interest at all from council.
Thank you. Did I see another question from Councillor Crockett, or did you have a question, Councillor Human?
Yeah, I think you just started to touch upon it, but I got kind of two questions. One, you talked about like consolidating energy bills to try and get preferred rates at committee. That came up. And then the second one is, as you kind of alluded to, different financial opportunities or funding opportunities for like a solar installation as an example. I was just wondering if you could talk to the group a little bit more about those two things.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So essentially by us performing this analysis ourselves, it's de-risked a lot of the questions that arise from our strategic partners. One is a big solar installer in Alberta and Western Canada. And I believe he's done a lot of work in Ontario, but I don't want to misspeak. But he's very confident he'd be able to come out and help us out with an installation in Ontario. Essentially, the way it would be structured is we'd look at the entire cost for installation on the rec center. We'd identify if there's any third-party funding sources available for it. If there aren't, then we would just look at structuring the payback period over, as mentioned, 5 to 9 years, based off of the current utility rates you're paying now. So in 2023, the rec center paid about 293,000 in electricity fees. And so we look at about 40% of that as distribution and transportation costs. And then we'd essentially use that number to factor out how long we'd have to get paid back to give our investors a decent return, but we're not talking like the amounts that the banks require for a mortgage or something, but just to make it look like it's an attractive installation. And then with that, because you're a preferred partners of ours, our solar installer would actually give you a discount as well on the overall cost to install. So that is one option for the solar. And because we're offering that to our clients, it essentially means that you're not limited to specific building types. You're not limited to specific project sizes or specific project types. Essentially, if you wanted to do the Harrietsville Ball Diamond, we could lump that on with the installation on the rec center, and we can kind of build it or scale it as you guys would want. As for our other suggestions, we're happy to help kind of move those along as well. The consolidation with utility companies, we've had a little bit of success with that here in Alberta, but in all honesty, the utility providers aren't overly excited to deal with a consulting company instead of the actual client themselves. So we would definitely be down to help you guys, but it would probably be a situation where we'd need someone at Temp Center in an administrative role to help us kind of go through that process instead of us just kind of taking lead, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Mayor. I might be going down a bit of a rabbit hole, but considering you're here for answers, what would the lifespan of the solar panels be, and what would be the process for disposal? Would it go to solid waste or would it be recyclable?
It would be recyclable. So our strategic partner just installed solar on my garage today, which is why I'm at home. And so the lifespan is minimum 25 years. They'll be guaranteed and warranted for, I believe, a minimum of 15, but the warranty extends beyond that for any kind of environmental issues or installation issues. And then the full lifespan that we're guaranteed for is 25 years. So the payback would be calculated with an effective use of 25 years. When we do our net benefit calculation, we would use the full 25 years life cycle. And then our goal is to have the municipality paid off within 6 to 10 years. So that's kind of what we're pushing towards. Then you've got 15 years of just comfortable, no payments at all. And you're getting all the electricity you produce for free, essentially, notwithstanding the fixed charges that you can't get out of.
Thank you. That answers your question then. Any other questions from council before we move on? Okay. All righty. Well, in that case, thank you very much for your presentation and sorry. Did I miss
Just
you?
one last question about the landfill. Are you aware of any programs for capping the landfill, or is that something where we might need to do some lobbying to open up some funds?
No, that's a great question. There's existing funding available for retrofits of landfill gas capture. Absolutely. I haven't looked at them for about a month, but I know that they were out there previously, and I believe it's a federal funding source as well. Let me just take a quick look. Yeah, so as of 2023, there was still a funding available through ECCC. That we have taken some clients through the grant application process before, but as mentioned before, it's a lot more effective if we kind of are part of it as an advising role, where we can offer some expertise where needed, as opposed to taking lead on those applications. The grant funding sources themselves typically like to see municipalities taking lead on it.
Thank you. All right. No other questions from council then? Okay. Then thank you very much for your presentation. And at this time, I'll call for a mover and a seconder that the Municipality of Temp Center Corporate Benchmarking Report 2023 Energy and Greenhouse Gas Emissions Summary, as presented by Elisa Tomnovic and Richard Hepp of eMission Software, be received for information. Motion by Councillor Lockie and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smyber. All in favor? That carries. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much for the opportunity to present.
You're welcome.
Have a good
All right,
meeting.
You too. And next, number 8 on the agenda, the adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held on November the 18th of 2024. Be approved as circulated. A mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Smyber and Councillor Crockett, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Moving on to number 9 on your agenda, the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are received for information in one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be separated for further action. Unless there is anything being pulled by any of the members of council. Okay, so mover and a seconder that consent items, consent agenda items 9.1 to 9.6 be received as information. Okay, Councillor Lockie and Councillor Crockett, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. All right. Reports of departments. So the first one is the Dundas Street drain. Travis Pitt.
Thank you, and good evening, council. You're probably experiencing a little deja vu with this one. This is the 7th petition we've received inside this watershed. Another ownership is looking to add their name to an active project. This area is obviously in need of some desperately needing some drainage, and there are more people requesting that here. So we're just looking to receive that and add this ownership to that petition, and I can answer any questions council might have.
It is getting to be a large area. Okay, any questions from the members of council for Travis on this petition? Okay, seeing none then, a mover and a seconder for the recommended motion as it appears on your agenda. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Heeman, all in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. Well, that was easy. Let's move on to the Newell Drain.
Yes, so recently we have received a petition, a request for drainage works from a landowner that has several acres of farmland that they're unable to find a suitable outlet to drain their field. And this request will grant an engineer the chance to come up with a report in order to help find this landowner a suitable outlet. And I can answer any questions that council might have.
Okay, once again, council, any questions for Travis on this particular petition? Seeing none? I didn't miss anyone, did I? Okay, that then again that the report number PWDR-01324 of the Drainage Superintendent dated December the 9th concerning a request received for new drainage works be received for information, and that the petition submitted under Section 4 of the Drainage Act for new drainage works in relation to property located inside Concession 5 SRT North Part Lots 5 and 6, formerly Township of North Dorchester, be received and adopted, and that Mr. M.P. DeVos of Spreed Associates be appointed the engineer to investigate and prepare the necessary drainage report. Moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Thank you. And now we can move on to the Thorndale Industrial Drain.
Thank you. This one is a little bit more detailed. I'll give a brief overview and then we can answer some questions that council will likely have. In 2019, development proposals to the Thorndale industrial lands revealed a lack of legal stormwater outlet for the area, prompting staff to seek a solution under the Drainage Act. Historically, development practices in this area allowed for stormwater runoff without proper management, leading to a complex situation where multiple landowners face varying requirements for stormwater management without any formal agreements. Municipality is now tasked with designing a comprehensive stormwater solution, which carries significant financial implications. Staff have outlined 4 funding options for this stormwater management project, with a recommendation based on advice from the drainage engineer and legal counsel. The preferred option allows for structured financial contributions from new developments while minimizing appeal risks. The total estimated project is $1.86 million, which will be funded through the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund and with some potential for a loan from Middlesex County. The initiative aims to improve stormwater management, foster economic growth, and address environmental compliance. One more thing I would like to note that I believe is important is that this is a current estimate, and that with this current estimate, if there is any delays with the rising costs of construction these days, it could significantly change over years if we did not act. I'll stop here, and staff is here to help answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the members of council on this drain? Councillor Crockett.
I guess not necessarily a question, but thank you for doing the background on this. There was a lot of legwork put into this. I was just curious, would this include both like underground drainage options as well as like ponding options in this area?
Everything being proposed here would be what I'll call on the surface in the form of channels or stormwater management ponds, except for there's a small stretch of proposed piping between these 2 proposed ponds that is looking to utilize the County of Middlesex property, but you can kind of see on the plan there between the ponds what's being proposed. That would be, and then, sorry, I also should state there is existing stormwater outlet that was created during the sanitary treatment plant. It was considered that this would be used as a stormwater outlet and the sanitary treated water outlet. So that portion would also be subsurface and go underneath Rebecca Road.
Perfect, thanks.
Councillor Heeman.
There's more of a comment, really. We had our stormwater workshop, and I think we talked about some of the difficult scenarios we might find ourselves in, and I think this was identified by that study as a good project, and I think it also exemplifies the importance of having those tools available when we get into these strange circumstances where we're kind of in limbo between the Drainage Act and stormwater. So I think that it's timely that we did that study in order to be able to move forward on this. And I do agree. At the Economic Development Committee, we've in presentations from the county, we've talked about trying to get more industrial lands on board, and I think this is definitely required to do that. And again, there is demand. We saw that one planning application that wanted to sever a lot, and you know, that there's requirements like this in the way of doing that. So I think this is much needed infrastructure.
Deputy Mayor Smybert.
It's just a question in terms of the 2025 budget. I know that there's still a lot of unanswered questions here, but do we have a sense or an idea if there's a budget amendment, what impact that's going to have on the draft budget as approved?
Thank you, Mayor. Through to the Deputy Mayor. The recommendation here, as you can see, is to report back after we know if we're successful for the county loan program or not, because that will determine the report thereafter. However, yes, there is ISIP funding available. We put aside certainly for the other half of this that we anticipate if we're successful in the county loan application, we'll have a funding plan. If we're unsuccessful, we might have to come up with something to tweak it a little bit further or fine tune it. But that's the plan as of right now, unless I've missed anything, either Jared or Emily.
Okay, thank you. Another question, Councillor Heeman?
Well, I think it's important to thank the county for identifying the loan program for industrial lands, because that's a recent change that benefits us in this situation as well.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then you have a motion before you. So do I have a mover and a second? Councillor Heeman and Deputy Mayor Smythe. All in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Thanks very much. All right. The next report then is the stormwater rate study. She's online, is she? Okay. All right. Hi,
Good evening.
Nancy.
Are you able to hear
Whenever
me?
you're ready, Nancy, you can go ahead. We can hear you.
That's great. Am I able to share my screen?
Hi, Nancy. Yes, you should be able to. If not, I
Okay.
have it as backup.
Let me just try and. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor McMillan, members of council, staff, and the public. I am just going to walk through a brief presentation of the findings of the stormwater rate study so that the public is aware of what the council is considering for the stormwater rate and rate structure for 2025. What we looked at was a funding study to embrace both capital operating and future asset replacement needs. As part of that, so a full stormwater management funding analysis. We looked at two funding options, the status quo with the current rate structure that really imposes a charge for on all of the urban properties, regardless of type or size, as well as another option that we'll talk about. We looked at the customers that would be imposed this charge and also built in some growth to that. Looked at the capital needs as mentioned, the operating needs over a 10-year forecast period, and then generated some stormwater rate options for your consideration. We did look at differentiating the second option of rates for residential and non-residential properties differently. And then we'll talk about at the very end the next steps and what you will need to do going forward for implementation of a new rate structure that's being recommended as part of the overall analysis and study that is before you. So as mentioned, as part of the study goals, we really look to understand what the existing infrastructure of your stormwater system is, including linear infrastructure, as well as facilities such as stormwater management ponds. Identify the needs that will be required for future growth to be added in, and then look at both the costs and the funding alternatives for the entire system, and recommend a level of service to provide not just what your immediate costs are for capital and operating, but as noted, looking at the asset management or future major maintenance and replacement of your infrastructure and assets moving forward over a longer period of time, including things that will be coming due outside the current 10-year forecast period. So we've summarized all of that for based on the expenses as well as the revenue, funding options, and really prepared those rate calculations for your consideration. Of course, they were based on your draft 2025 and prior 24 budget information. And we have forecasted out over the longer period, but this is something that annually through your budget process will need to be refined. Different inflationary factors may impact future years, but what we've tried to do is build in inflation to the rate calculations as well, based on all the information we know today. When we have looked at this alternative rate structure, moving away from just all properties paying the same amount, we have looked at a tiered system that is differentiated for residential and non-residential types of customers. So with the residential customers, we've looked at grouping projects based on their land size, with small properties being those that are less than or equal to a quarter of an acre, those that are between a quarter of an acre and 1 acre, and those that are greater than 1 acre, recognizing that different sizes of properties actually produce a different runoff of their water that falls onto the property into your storm system. As well, on the non-residential side of things, we tiered them by small, medium, and large as well, with the smaller properties being less than or equal to 5 acres, the medium properties being within 5 to 15 acres, and the larger properties being greater than 15 acres. When it comes to the agricultural sector, they are outside of the urban serviced area, so they have been excluded from the calculations, as well as vacant lands that are currently in the urban area, as there's not a lot of runoff. They're vacant. Most of the land there is permeable and can handle the storm system. However, some of those vacant properties will be developed over time, and where development happens and more buildings and hard surfaces are put in place, we have recommended that those customers then get added into the future customer base that would help to share in the costs of the stormwater system. Schools, on the other hand, any school that falls under your public or separate school boards are mandatorily exempt through the Education Act. So we have excluded those properties from the calculations. This is a map just trying to depict the properties within that urban serviced area of Dorchester, the red line outlining that total area. There are properties currently that are highlighted in pink here that are already paying the current stormwater charge that is in place. There's other properties in green that are currently not paying that charge, but will be going forward. They will be added into the properties that are within this urban area and be subject to the charge. Again, the white areas include vacant land, agricultural lands, and/or the schools that would be excluded from the charge. And then, of course, anything outside that urban area would not be subject to the stormwater rates. Similarly, on the next slide, we have a map of the stormwater serviced area in Thorndale. Similarly, with the pink properties, identifying those that currently pay the stormwater rate, the green ones being those that will be anticipated to be added to this, the billing for this, and the other properties that are currently either schools, vacant, or agricultural lands that won't be imposed the charge. As noted, we've looked at your current residential and non-residential customers in both Dorchester and Thorndale and grouped them based on those property sizes. You can see that the majority of your customers, of course, are on the residential side of things, and the majority of them fall into that category of small properties that are under a quarter of an acre. And then you can see at the bottom where we have identified additional growth in units over the next 10 years, with properties being added in as they develop to start paying those rates in future years. So right now, the growth that we've included, any year that a new customer comes on, we've assumed in the rates that they would generate a half of a year's revenue. And then the second year, they would actually be on the system and be charged the rate for the full year. The growth forecast was based on your growth forecast that was approved in your most recent development charge study. And of course, we've refined it with staff based on actual growth that has taken place and where we see the growth going to be a little bit more conservative over the forecast period so that we don't add too many customers into the base right now. And because if you don't get them and they're not contributing, it would result in deficits for you. So we have tried to be conservative on the customers that we're adding in. The next one really looks at the properties and how the land area associated with those properties changes over the forecast period as developments happen. So there, you can see again, the majority of your customers are on the residential sector, and that is where the majority of land that contributes that stormwater runoff takes place in that residential sector. But the non-residential sector, again, is anticipated to be increasing. Again, the other thing is where we have added new non-residential customers into the mix, we have assumed that they would fall into that small category going forward. However, there may be over time a handful of customers that actually are on larger properties for the non-residential. And really, we're just being conservative at the moment because the larger properties pay a higher rate. There'd be a bit of a buffer then in any given year where someone gets added in on the larger customers to provide a bit of a surplus in those years. And sorry, I'm just going to take a glass of water because I am losing my voice. When we look at the capital forecast, we have what the 2023 actual costs were. We're very close to knowing that your 2024 capital costs were about 200,000. But then moving forward over the forecast, including those costs that were being funded this year, there is almost $5.7 million in total that are anticipated. These are in inflated dollars. However, there may be at some point other works that come forward. And again, that is why staff would review annually to make sure that they are accounting for all the capital needs through the forecast each year as everything updates. At the bottom, you'll see that really similar to past, there has been still a heavy reliance on grant funding to form a lot of the, or to fund a lot of the capital. And we are anticipating that there will still be grant funding required over the 2025 and 2026 forecast years, but and a little bit of debentures that are required to help finance some of the capital that we're assuming will come from a loan from through the county. But then going forward, what we've been doing is establishing and adding money to a reserve fund so that as you move out, the funds that you need to fund your capital will be in a dedicated stormwater reserve to help mitigate having to undertake additional debt or rely on grant funding because it may not be available in the future. On the operating budget side of things, again, we've looked at your 2023 actuals, your 2024 budget and 25 budgets, and really tried to apply some inflation moving forward to generate what we think those day-to-day operating costs will continue to be over the forecast period. Looked at those loan payments that would be due back to that county loan over a 15-year period. So there will still be future payments on that outside of 2033. But then as noted, the biggest component is trying to add to that reserve fund, not only to fund the capital needs within this 10-year forecast post 2026, but also to look at the needs that will be coming due for asset replacement in the post 23 or 2033 forecast period to help mitigate large fluctuations in rate changes that are needed and reach that sustainability where you're investing enough money to put aside and be able to deal with the asset replacement when it comes due. When looking at what that results in a rate for currently status quo, the alternative one, if you were to continue to just impose the same rate on all properties, including those new properties to be added into the system, right now in 2024, annually a customer would have paid $70.74. And that is projected to have to increase to about $247 over this forecast period. That results in, to put it into perspective, monthly paying about just under $6 in 2024 and almost $21 per month in 2033 inflated values. Looking at differentiating the rates based on the small, medium, and large residential and small, medium, and large non-residential customers, we have adjusted the rates with the medium and small or medium properties paying 2 times what the small properties do, and the large properties paying 3 times what the small properties would pay for a residential. Similarly, there's a relationship then with the non-residential, medium, and small paying 2 to 3 times the small rate for the non-residential. There is a shift on what we are trying to recover from the non-residential sector, as a majority of those properties have much less permeable land areas for stormwater to seep into the ground and therefore generate more runoff typically into your stormwater system than the residential customers do. And you can see that right now, as noted, under the status quo in 2025, if you stayed with your current rate structure, almost 96% of the revenues you need to recover would be coming from your residential customers and just over 4% from your non-residential customers. Moving to the differentiated rate in 2025, you can see that we're now starting to rely more on the non-residential sector, with about 13% being recovered from that sector and reducing how much reliance we're getting from the residential sector. But again, it's still a significant amount because most of your customer base is in the residential sector. And then you can see as we move out over the forecast with the differentiated rate, you further reduce the amount of revenue in total that you get from the residential sector, where you're just down to over 72%, and increasing what you get from the non-residential sector to almost 28% by the end of this forecast period. To give you perspective, for those small residential properties, we've given you a survey of where other municipalities impose a charge for similar size small properties, with the yellow here being your current rate, the first one being your small residential customers for 2025, going up slightly. And then we've also included in here the medium and large properties based on the 2025 rates to show you that in other municipalities, even for those small properties, there are quite a few municipalities that impose even a higher charge for small properties than what you'll be charging your medium residential properties. And there are still a few that charge their small residential properties more than what you'd be imposing on your large properties. So really, we provided the background report with those rate options. It is, I believe, in your council package. Wanted to present this to yourselves so that during your budget deliberations for the 2025 fees and charges bylaw, you can consider this new rate alternative and the rates that have been calculated there, with implementation of that to begin in January of 2025. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those, but that is my presentation for this evening.
Thank you very much, Nancy. I think before we go into questions, Mr. Craven has a report to present.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Nancy. Before you report PWES 00824, the 2024 Stormwater Rate Study Report. The municipality of Thames Center retained Watson Associates Economists to undertake a stormwater rate study. Stormwater services are currently funded primarily from a dedicated uniform flat rate that is imposed only on water customers in the urban serviced areas of Dorchester and Thorndale, plus grant funding where available. With increasing financial pressures on the stormwater system and the unpredictability of grant funding, the municipality is seeking an alternative rate structure for stormwater services in order to recover the costs associated with the services that are anticipated to 2033. The primary goals of the study were to A, identify, review, and evaluate an alternative preferred rate structure to support the municipality's stormwater management program, and B, to calculate stormwater rates for 2025 to 2033. The tiered rate flat funding model, varied by the type and size of properties recommended from this study, will move towards recovering all stormwater costs through full cost recovery rates, with increased transfer to reserves to assist with future asset replacement needs. Stormwater needs outside the urban boundary, i.e. the rural areas, will still continue to be handled through the Drainage Act. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jared. Any questions from the members of council for either Nancy or? Okay, Councillor Lockie, go ahead.
Through your worship, I think this would be for Director Craven. So before it was with water, how many properties will be impacted by the change? So properties didn't have to pay into it before, but will now have to with this new plan?
Approximately 300.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Crockett, did I see your hand?
Just to follow up on that, all 300 of those will then be using the new infrastructure within the urban boundary.
The majority will be. There are some that, again, with stormwater management on ponds, they will be too. This methodology was everything inside the urban boundary, and that's, I guess that's a formula that we used, or that's a methodology used, everything inside the urban boundary.
Go ahead, Councillor Crockett.
Sorry. And when considering the rates, is there any consideration to the non-permeable land coverage, especially in the non-residential areas? Like for an increased rate, since they would cause more stormwater issues or flow?
Through your worship, there's different scenarios and different methodologies we could have used. You can tap down to, runoff coefficients. It's just the deeper you get into those, the more staffing hours, administration cost that you takes to get to that level there. So this was relatively, easy to administer and encompass everybody in their boundary.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? I just noticed that it is taking a significant jump in the non-residential portions. There are currently 70, 74 and up to, with residential greater than 15 acres, $795. It's a fair jump. think I have it. It's okay. Any other questions? All right, then. At this point then, a mover and a seconder to receive this report as information and approve the 2024 stormwater rate study. I'm moving and seconder. And that the report PWES 008-24 be received for information, and that the 2024 storm rate study prepared by Watson and Associates Economists Limited dated November 29th, 2024 be approved. Moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Okay, thanks very much. Thank you, Nancy. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, you too.
So whenever you're ready, Emily, request for proposal municipal financial audit services.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to authorize staff to award RFP TC 018-24 for municipal financial audit services to KPMG for at a total cost of $257,000 plus HST for a contract term of 2024 to 2028. As you recall, back at the October 21st council meeting, there was the motion to reconsider the bylaw to appoint an auditor, as well as then for staff to complete an RFP. Looking for audit services. We conducted that process through using Bid and Go, and of the 4 plan takers, only 2 proposals were received, and we are recommending KPMG for a number of reasons. They have a significant professional presence in Southwestern Ontario and across Canada in the public sector, including about 290 municipal government clients in Canada. They have a strong understanding of municipal financial statements, upcoming changes in accounting standards, and a highly experienced audit team. It should also be noted that KPMG was one of our previous auditors for the municipality. The 2024 audit costs of approximately $47,500 for KPMG were included in the draft 2025 operating budget, and future year's audit costs will be incorporated into our annual operating budgets. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Emily. Any questions on this particular issue? Deputy Mayor Smybert.
Great. Thank you. Through the mayor to the director of finance. So is this for a 4-year term or 5-year term?
It's for a 4-year term, 4 fiscal years audit, so 4-year term.
Thank you. And does the cost just incorporate audit services, or is it FIR filing or reconciliations?
Through the mayor, it is for audit services. We did discuss with them the financial statements, so that's included. FIR would sometimes we do it in-house as well. It kind of varies each year depending on resources.
So just I guess a comment. So I don't think it's any surprise that this cost is significantly higher than what we were paying, which is unfortunate because it's probably an additional $100,000 with the course of the 4 years. So again, it's not insignificant, and I just wanted to make that comment.
And just from Mr. Barrick, that's 5 audit years. So it'll be spread out of 5. No? All right, any other questions then? All right, so before you, that report number F-011-24 be received for information, and that the county authorizes staff to award RFP TC-018-24 for municipal financial audit services to KPMG Limited, LLP, at a cost of $257,000 plus HST for a contract term of 2024 through to 2028. A mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Lockie and seconded by Councillor Heeman. So all in favor? Thank you. The motion carries then. Thank you, Emily. So item number 11 on your agenda, reports of committees. Items listed under reports of committees are approved by council in one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be separated for further action. So the motion is that reports of committees, agenda item 11.1 and 11.2 be approved as presented. So on, Councillor Crockett, are you moving it or did you want one quote? Okay, which one?
I would just like to pull item 11.1 for comment.
Go right ahead.
He left the room. Poor timing. I just wanted to say thank you to the Sports Wall of Fame committee and staff that support the committee for this, for doing the communications out to the respective teams and associations that the sports recognition wall is being promoted to. One of the things we did want to mention is that it isn't just restricted to players. This is an opportunity for those associations to kind of congratulate and celebrate, champion, however which way you'd like to say it, any folks that make a difference to their associations. So whether that be broadcasters or volunteers or coaches, trainers, etc. And this is something that we don't do on the regular Sports Wall of Fame. So this is an opportunity to kind of expand that piece out there, as well as fill up a lot of wall space in the new Flight Exec Center. So thanks, Mr. Maudsley.
Well, we certainly have lots of wall space to use. Okay. So, and we're good with 11.2? No one knows? No. Okay. So in that particular case, we can vote to receive both of the reports together. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Crockett and seconded by Councillor Heeman, I believe. All in favor? All right, thank you. All right, Mayor's, it's quite short this month. Pleased to report my activities since the last report. During the month of November, in addition to council meetings in Thames Centre and County Council, I started November off with the annual Middlesex Centre Mayor's Breakfast, which was very well attended. November the 6th was our municipality's turn to host and learn from the fall emergency exercises. These exercises have been held right across Middlesex County with the goal of making our various municipalities prepared for significant events that could happen and that would take a coordinated effort to deal with in the case of an emergency. It went very well. And as luck would have it, our exercises were put to the test last week when an issue on the 401 caused many people to be stranded for a number of hours. And Thames Centre jumped right in to help deal with it by opening a warming center where people could wait for either rides or transportation or have their vehicles released. So I'd like to give at this time a really special thank you to all our particular recreational staff and everything for setting that up in a quick order and hosting some folks there. And well, of course, Chief Dorkin as well, who was out in the thick of things. Yeah, it did. It looked very good. Okay. And November the 11th saw the annual Remembrance Day service held at the Cenotaph, where I had the opportunity to lay a wreath on behalf of the municipality. Also during the month, I had meetings with a number of residents, MPP Rob Flack, along with my annual one-on-one meetings with members of council. Thursday, November the 21st, I was invited to welcome a new No Frills grocery store to the village on the morning of their grand opening. And this report is also my opportunity to extend my very best wishes to all our residents for a happy holiday season, however you may celebrate. More in January. So that takes us, no items for unfinished business, no notices of motion, and new business. Just confirming. Bylaws. That bylaw number 69-2024, Elliott Drain A, be given third and final reading. And that bylaw number 84-2024, O'Reilly Drain 2024, be given first and second reading. A mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Okay. Third and final reading, we have done that. So, I'm sorry. Okay, so at this time, I'd like a mover and a seconder for council to move into closed session at 6:10 PM. Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Thank you. So we'll take a few minutes break and be back here at about 6. So following closed session, I'm reporting that at 7:26 PM, that council provided direction to staff regarding an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and instruction to be applied to the negotiations carried on by or on behalf of the municipality. And we're doing it. Deputy Mayor Smybert, go
Thank
ahead.
you. I'd like to move that council authorize the payment of expenses related to the Thames Center Police Services Board.
Do we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Lockie, all in favor? Great, that motion carries then. So we'll move on to the confirmatory bylaw. Bylaw number 85-2024, the confirmatory bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution of the municipality of Thames Center. And that bylaw 85-2024 being the confirmatory bylaw be adopted as presented. A mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Lockie, all in favor? All right. The next meetings of council will be as follows: Monday, January the 13th, 2025 at 5 PM, followed by Monday, January the 27th at 2025 at also at 5 PM. A motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. Councillor Crockett and Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Thank you all.